Hello everyone, this is Edwin Braun of Cebas Visual Technology, and I'm talking today to Hristo Velev, and we will learn how he is using Thinking Particles, how he got into the visual effects industry, and let's go ahead. Hristo, tell us a little bit about your career and how you got into visual effects.
Hey Edwin, glad to be on board first
Mm-hmm.
with you guys again. Yeah, this should be interesting. And hi to everybody who's watching. You guys are awesome. Thank you. So yeah, about how the whole thing started. I usually don't. I'm not kind of a. I don't spend much time yet, kind of remembering things. So more focused on what's to come and what's happening now. But I remember a few things. For me, it was very, I guess, different than for a lot of people that I wasn't kind of movie geek as I was growing up as a kid. I was mostly reading books and I was enjoying a lot of sci-fi, though, and some, adventure books. But eventually, when I was kind of a computer enthusiast when I was a kid, and I was in a computer science high school, which was kind of unusual, a boarding school, which was focused on computer science. It was quite strange. So, you go as a kid, 14 years old somewhere and learn computer science until you're 19. And it's as crazy as you can imagine. It was some quite unusual and interesting stories.
So where did you learn computer graphics or stuff?
Yeah, so then afterwards I went to university, but I didn't really get along with my teachers too much, and I chose to leave the university and go to another one, and that one kind of gave me the option that if you want to do computer science here, you can have a minor, and you could either do computer music or computer graphics.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, okay, on the music side I'm going to stick to my guitar, but on the graphics side I said, okay, this is interesting, and I got a couple of classes. And they really got me interested. This kind of thing clicked, and there was all of these tutorials on the internet. I think like the CG Academy tutorials with particle flow, and this really got me started. And from then on, I kind of left that university also, and I just learned on my own from the internet. The good old days with Anselm and with there's so many other guys
Mm-hmm.
back in the CG talk. 10 years ago.
So,
It was great.
but where did you grow up? That was my original question, because people might not know where you're based right now. Which country are
Oh
you
yeah,
right
I
now?
grew up in I grew up in Bulgaria in Eastern Europe. It's a fun country north of Greece. It's yeah, I kind of grew up in a small town, and then yeah, I went to boarding school in like another small town, and then I moved on to Sofia, which is like the capital with about 1 million people,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went on to Pixomondo in Berlin and so on.
Oh, okay. So you actually traveled then a little bit.
Yeah, this was kind of the start of my travels, which is pretty much continuing on to this day. So yeah, I went to after I started with doing some lighting and rendering in architectural stuff because there was so much construction going on in like 2006, 2008. But I always wanted to do effects, and the simulated stuff and particles was always the most fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just, upgrading my reel on the side as I was doing architectural stuff for work. And then eventually, just as the architectural business crashed because of the financial crisis,
Mm-hmm.
I got my real replied to from the guys in Pixomondo for 2012 production,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I moved over to Babelsberg, which is in Potsdam, quite close to Berlin, for my first effects job in Pixomondo.
Oh, cool. So you stayed some time in Bulgaria, and then you moved to Germany and did a visual effects job there. And from then on,
Yeah, a couple of years in Pixomondo where we did 2012 and Red Tails. There was the train destruction there, which was very fun to do, and Sucker Punch in Hindenburg where we did all the airships,
hmm
which were super insane. All the time with guys like Mason Musawi, with Goran Pavles, with Das. So nice fun gang here there with Peter Menz, with Marcel Kern. So a lot of fun guys. So afterwards, I moved over to Screen Scene in Dublin for only like a few months, where I was doing more like R&D and some kind of uh, like developing some techniques and some things that were in trailers eventually didn't really come out. So I think like some test projects. And then for a couple of years, like for a year, I think, and something, to Scanline in Vancouver
oh,
with the guys who are still there, with Joe Scar and everybody. And actually, a lot of the people in the Pixomondo Berlin team moved over there, so we kind of kept on the gang, you could
oh,
say.
okay, that's cool.
No, it was good.
So
It was good.
at some point you ended up in North America then. Have you ever been down in LA or just in
I
Canada then?
go, yeah, I go every year for a few weeks. I think next month I'm going to be there again, but I haven't really lived for a long time. I enjoy it quite a lot actually.
hmm
It's quite, yeah, to me it has a lot of uh, it has its charm.
Yeah,
It's a place of its own, definitely.
yeah.
It clicks with me. I
Okay.
like it.
So and you're now back in Sofia or where are you now?
Yeah, after we had after I had done the Pixel scanline and everything route, I just figured out, mm, in my heart, I really wanted to start my own company because I wanted to build something a bit bigger. The things that I was doing with my FX setups, it was really fun, but I just felt I want to do something to make just something which is a bit more than that.
hmm
So this is not like the natural thing that is after, solving these technical issues to just start solving bigger problems and build bigger systems. So it was not very easy to find somebody who wants to start a new business. So after I had done the tour with Pixo and Scanline and so on, I really decided that I want to start my own company because it felt like the natural next step, and I really wanted to kind of grow from there. It didn't feel still like the place that I wanted to end up at. I still wanted uh, to explore more. So it was not easy to find out a business partner, but eventually my friend from back in the day, Martin Naidinsky, was interested, and we started the company back in Sofia because we didn't have too much capital at the time, and
hmm
it gave us enough time in a place which has more, a better cost to survive for long enough so that we can
Yeah.
establish ourselves.
Okay. So you actually started a visual effects company in Sofia. Is that right?
Yeah.
So how many companies are there in Sofia doing visual effects at your level? I guess there's
Uh,
only you or
there's actually a handful.
oh
There's
really?
Yeah,
Oh,
there's a company called Worldwide FX that
hmm
is much bigger. It's probably like about a couple of hundred people.
oh wow.
They do a lot of, like, if you see the movies, like we actually did a movie with them lately called Hunter Killer.
hmm
Yeah, it's gonna be out, I think, in the autumn. But they have done also a lot of stuff like the Expendables movies, for example.
Oh wow.
There is other companies who are kind of our size, called one of them is called Cinemotion. For example, they do a lot of TV stuff for Universal,
hmm
and there is a handful. There's
Oh.
also a lot of game development going on.
hmm
Is kind of one of the tech hubs in the Balkans. So I think game development people are much more in numbers than VFX people. There's Ubisoft and Hemimont, guys who make a game called games called Tropico, and now they had a game called Mars, Surviving Mars or something. There is Ubisoft make Assassin's Creed here, and there is a game company called Gameloft makes a lot of mobile games.
Oh wow! I didn't know that there's so much going on in Bulgaria there with visual effects and 3D.
There's plenty. We made the first meeting of computer animation society that we started up. It was only kind of last week. So we had announced it in a couple of weeks, I think, in advance only, and we had 150 people show up.
Oh, wow.
It was quite great. So yeah, we hope that it's gonna just grow from there.
So how many people are you right now in your team?
Yeah, our team is now about 15 people, probably like maybe somewhere there,
Oh, that's
15 or 17. There's a couple of guys. There's one guy actually who is temporary, like a temporary contract, but most of our people are permanent, and it's very important for us to keep our people long term, and this was one of the reasons that we started the company. We wanted to have this very people-centric company that keeps the talent long term. So we grow, but you could say we grow kind of slowly. We have one intern all the time, and they stay for like 3 months, and if we like them, they get an offer to stay as a junior artist, and we hire some people to help out here and there when we have a bit too much work. So we grow with this kind of steady pace, but there are some plans for something more spectacular to happen soon.
Ah, okay, good. That sounds interesting.
Interesting.
Let's talk about the projects you have. So you have one project coming out soon in the cinemas, and that's a movie called Airstrike. Can you tell a little bit about that project? How did you get it, and what is it about, and how did that go?
Yeah, this is actually something that we have finished quite a long time ago, and it only came up now because production difficulties and so on, stuff beyond our control. But it's interesting thing is a Chinese movie, but it stars Bruce Willis.
Oh, okay.
This was quite unusual, I guess. So there is a few of these movies that you can see here and there, and we got in through a company called Macrograph in Korea that they just actually came to visit a while back. But since we had worked on a movie called Mojin, The Lost Legend, I think in 2014 maybe or 2015, and it got an award for visual effects. This was quite successful in the box office, and it looked quite nice with our good friend Sam Korshit in Funnel Films. So this award got us some attention. So eventually now we feel like we are kind of on the map. So we get requests here and there, and the guys from Macrograph got us on board for that project. And yeah, that's kind of how it happens. You start doing some work and people notice it, and then conversations start.
Yeah. So what did you do in that movie? What kind of shots? What work was it? How many shots did you get? And
yeah, on Airstrike we did I think a couple of dozen shots, and they were all quite heavy. And so far this has been kind of our profile, because when we started with a small number of people, we were not able to get these big movie chunks of hundreds of shots. So what we do is that we usually have partnered with other companies that we have been doing the stuff which is the higher end of that work. Nowadays we continually expand, so we get more and more as a piece of the pie, and eventually we are aiming at getting complete movie sequences, when we get to the right number of people. But so far we have been mostly getting stuff like this, high-end FX shots. And we do, a few dozen shots in a project.
Oh, okay.
So on this one, we did a lot of effects shots that had kind of city destruction, a lot of bombs. Some of the shots were water, where an airplane hits the water and you can see it from underneath. This kind of stuff. A lot of kind of war effects.
So you do the full deal. You do the rigid bodies and also the volumetric stuff, smoke, fire, and fluid as well.
Yeah.
So you do the full package.
Yeah, absolutely. So we take the stuff from the beginning. So we do assets and environment work and effects work, compositing. So we deliver the final shots.
Cool. So what's your tool set? You're on 3D Studio Max, obviously, because that's where our tool as well is pretty strong and what we support. Any other tools you have, or?
Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting situation with our tool set, because we have this very strong history of coming up with Max and Nuke, and then nowadays we are quite expanding that. Because with the addition of Shotgun, it's very good for a small company like us to be adding new tools to the tool set. You need additional things when you're doing a wide range of work. So our core is still Max, where we do a lot of the modeling. We do all our effects. So we have been using the old NAD quite a lot. And hopefully the new developments in Max Fluids will help us out also. We use some Maya for animation, and to interoperate with other companies who we do work with. And then eventually we come back to Max, where our TP stuff and film effects and particles in PRTs and geometry and everything gets rendered. Nowadays, we're also looking at Katana because it gives us a lot of benefits in dealing with a lot of lighting in a very efficient manner with a small number of people. And eventually, everything lands up in Nuke, where we composite. And we also use in the earlier parts of the workflow, we use plenty of Mudbox, ZBrush, Substance Painter. We haven't really got into Mari yet, but eventually I guess this will happen. So we are building more of a network than a pipeline. So we use a lot of tools when they're necessary, and sometimes even each shot is taking a different path through the network.
Yeah. That sounds like you're a real studio. That exactly sounds like all the big studios do it. They usually have a larger set of tools. They are not only having one tool. So exchange of data is becoming more and more critical. That's also what we try to integrate more and more into Thinking Particles, because we totally understand that in a larger production you have a lot of tools, and for whatever reason one tool is better at one specific thing, so you can't do everything with one tool. So the interactions is very important to get the data criss and cross. Yeah.
And actually we were very pleasantly surprised when we sent Destruction Scene into Katana, and looking at the way that Katana reads the alembics that were exported from Thinking Particles, made it very easy to assign the materials, which everybody that has done serious destruction work knows that this is quite an important and complex part of the process. Materials on the geometry, which is changing poly counts, and there's a lot of complexity in there. So we were quite pleasantly surprised at how these alembics exported were being handled in Katana.
Oh, that's good. Nice to hear. Yes, and we're still working on the alembic export to enhance it and get it even better. So yeah, that's important nowadays, to just have data exchange, and it gets more and more.
Absolutely, and I think this is a field where the technology is quite behind, unfortunately, and there is a lot of cool algorithms that get implemented here and there, but just moving data around, which is kind of maybe because it feels a bit less glamorous, but it's been holding companies back quite a lot because, for example, to this day, you can't really easily transfer materials between platforms. And Alembic and VDB help a lot with geometry and fields. So we definitely hope something like this, maybe with Material X and with OSL, that we definitely have very high hopes for and use a lot of. OSL now with the new Max and Katana, for example, you could rebuild shaders which are working the same way across renderers and across platforms. That's something that is quite important. And doing the same thing for points. By the way, we also exported from TP Alembic points. This also nice thing, Katana. And we are looking at maybe doing something for the PRTs that we use quite a lot. But it's very important to have all the fundamental data types being transferred freely between applications, and that's not everything is there yet, unfortunately.
And you're rendering in 3D Studio Max, right?
Yeah, currently, yeah.
Okay.
Katana is something that we are now developing, and eventually we'll start rolling in, but we are rendering in Max. We have this lighting pipeline which relies on things like Vexus and smart refs, so that we can have a bit more flexible lighting pipeline. Here is our main geometry renderer. We are getting really good support from the guys who are developing it over here. They are also in Sofia, in our town. And yeah, you could say that we get a bit of a, maybe, hopefully, kind of a nice treatment, because we can easily them and we can annoy them.
Yes, you can just walk over and smack them.
Yeah, we can head over to their office.
That's good. That's interesting. So when you work with Chinese production or companies, is that an issue for you, or is it easier because you're in Bulgaria, or doesn't it matter at all?
It doesn't feel like something which is an issue, because it has been the way that we have worked with all our clients. You don't have the client in your office, but I'm not sure this would be a good thing even if it were. Sometimes people visit, which is nice. We love them. We love it when they visit, but when they don't, we have a very fluent communication with the guys in China. A lot of the times we have been communicating with people who are very easy to talk to. So our experience has been mostly quite positive. Sometimes it's a bit more chaotic production-wise, and things change a lot, and you could have unpredictable delays in schedules, but we have not had delays which are affecting us. I mean, they could affect the whole production, but from our point of view, they have been quite smooth. So our experience has been quite nice.
Okay, that's interesting to hear. So, yeah, okay. So, but you didn't learn any Chinese, right? You just talked to them in English.
Yeah, not yet. We haven't talked in English. It would be interesting, though. Eventually at some point to learn.
Okay, let's talk about, we are doing a live, or you're doing a live webinar in September.
Yeah.
And you will show some thinking particles magic there, and how you use it, and how are things done. Can you tell us something you planned? You want to show?
Yeah, this would be interesting. It would be based off a setup that I did for this project, but I'm gonna focus just on kind of showing off some things which are really important, I feel like, and it's about how to build your effects in layers and how to get approval on each of the steps, so you can move on safely from one step, which get it approved, and then move on to the next, and how to keep adding detail into stuff without changing the the general shapes, because that's something that not a lot of the younger people that are coming in that I'm seeing have a grasp of, and it's something that's extremely important in production. You could expect something which is very production focused and emphasizes the skills that you would need when you do stuff in a studio with as a part of the bigger team, because it's always teamwork, and these things are, I think, under stressed and under represented in young people learn. So I will try to cover this underexplored field, but it's going to be a destruction of a rigid body destruction, and some soft bodies, cloth and so on. It's going to be a lot of secondaries. It's going to be some emission for atmospherics, this kind of stuff, and setting up the whole thing to render and kind of being light and render friendly. So yeah, that's basically what we're going to be doing.
Okay. You were talking about new artists that are just beginning and starting. What is your experience in Bulgaria or in Sofia? Do you find new talent? Do you find a lot? Is it easy to find people? Or then the next question would be, if you find the people, do they know what they are up to?
I think that currently there is nowhere in the world where it's easy to find good new people, and there has been a lot of productions and people who are coming into especially the stuff that we are doing. They need some time to become quite good, so we are not trying to kind of do it the easy way. What we are focusing on is to nurture and to grow our people. So to support them through their time that they need to kind of the experience that they need to accumulate as they grow. And I think our type of company is really good for that, because you are getting much more listened to, I feel like, than in a bigger, more kind of maybe more formal environment.
Yep.
So we have adapted to this kind of to the strengths that the small company has, that you can keep your people for longer, and you can give them plenty of attention, and then they can grow and they can stay much longer. So eventually you keep more of the potential that's grown inside. And Sofia has plenty of people, I feel like. There's plenty of people who are, just like young people everywhere. They're enthusiastic. They have been trying a lot of stuff out, and they have been doing stuff at home, but most of them have not had any real production experience. Some of the people who are coming from universities have had a project or two in the university, but this is generally quite insufficient to prepare them for actual production work. So we feel that internships are very necessary to get this thing going, just to expose people to the way that things work in actual production environment, because the complexity step up is extremely steep.
Yeah.
So it's important to give these people the time and the attention that they need. And I think if you do that, then a lot of times it works. Not always, but a lot of times it works. So for us, yeah, it's like getting our local enthusiasts, find them out, and then help them out to grow. But definitely it's difficult, and there's not too many people who can do really good work. So we are being careful with our people.
So do you also outsource? You ask your old buddies for some things when it gets really stressful, or?
We don't do this much,
Okay.
honestly, because it's very difficult to keep creative control. It's difficult to react quickly, to be productive enough, because in-house we have a lot of benefits. We have your IT infrastructure is here. We have about 60 machines that you can turn around things quickly. You can communicate really productively. because everybody's in the same place. People are being responsible. You can go to a guy's desk and talk to them, and you get them to do to understand maybe better some comments. And unfortunately, still just the communication over long range, when you have a lot of details and a lot of information that you need to convey, is not very great. So it's much more productive just to communicate even with people when you're in the same place. And the work that we do, it just takes a lot of information to go through, because there's so many tiny details that it's kind of not really feasible to have somebody kind of quickly send in a quick phone call and messaging. It's difficult to convey all of these details. Now that's one thing. Another thing is that, as I said, we feel like our core team is something which gives value to the company, and if it's stuff which is kind of commoditizable, we do sometimes freelancing for the roto and the tracking and so on. A lot of times it's friends of ours who are really we really trust. But most of the other times we tend to keep like the solution to the big tasks in-house, and there is so much communication in between the teams even that it's not really feasible to do it with a person who is outside. But on some projects who are quite compact, that's where we rely on people who we really know that they can do really good work, and we just shift over the whole project to them. So if something is only like a compact amount of work which can be done by a person, then we shift it over to some friends, some people who we know and then we trust.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about our tool, thinkingParticles. You're using thinkingParticles. I know that you will do the webinar, so we heard about that. So from thinkingParticles, what do you like the most? What's your favorite thing in thinkingParticles?
Honestly, nowadays I'm more into a kind of a lead and supervision sometimes role. I do a lot of businessy stuff, so I'm not as active, kind of an artist day to day, but still I'm very involved in technical stuff, and I help out when there's difficult questions to solve. So I haven't lost touch by any means. What we really like in thinkingParticles is kind of the speed and flexibility that you can set up a lot of effects in. And a lot of times we can get to a quick prototype extremely quickly. So I remember a project recently where we got into the project, and the supervisor said, there's a company who has taken 3 months to show us a version, and the project is over in 2 months, so we can't really afford to kind of spend even more time until we see like only a second version. And we kind of thought about it, and it's difficult to do this kind of simulations, and it's a lot of work. They're heavy and complex, but the directors, they want to direct. You can't show them one single thing and expect them to be okay with that, because they need options. They need to choose a path. So what we did is that next week we gave them, I think, a dozen versions, or like 7, 8 versions. In each of them we were explaining what was our thought process behind it, and how we started with the thing that they had before, and what art directed changes we made so it can become more interesting in different directions. And then the director actually was obviously very happy with that, and he was able to choose the version that he liked most. And I think this is something which is very important that thinkingParticles is giving us, this this option to quickly explore versions. And this is giving the director the opportunity to actually direct. So if things take too much time, then you can't feasibly make it work. So this rapid prototyping, I think, is very great. The connection between the different areas, the fact that we have the soft polish and the rigids and the SPH stuff, this is also quite great because it allows us to put things together efficiently. And we like the performance with heavy rigid bodies because a lot of times you have, always pretty much, you need to put in as much stuff as possible inside.
Yeah.
So if you don't, when you don't have something that kind of chokes and you can put a lot of things through, that's quite dependable, and we love that. And I would, if I have to say one more thing, is that it's easy to layer things. I know it's easy to have like to cache one element, which would be your foundation, and then to keep adding small layers that are doing these secondary effects, which are kind of fleshing the whole thing out, in giving it life and giving it nuances. And these things are easy to do in TP. So yeah, I would say these are our main reasons.
Oh, okay, that's good to hear. That's what we want to hear, and that's actually what we build TP for, this fully procedural approach that gives you the total freedom to do things. So that's what we always wanted to see out there when artists use our tools. So any cool projects, new projects you're looking forward to? Can you talk about some, or is everything under NDA?
Yeah, usually everything is quite tight because that's pretty much how the movie business works. It's very important to keep the secret until the last moment. But you could expect that we keep doing the stuff that we are doing. There's a lot of destruction work going on, and there's actually some effects which are quite unusual that we're doing now, and this is quite interesting because a lot of times you end up doing these VFX staple work, but sometimes you have projects that you have stuff which is completely different, and I think this is interesting. We like these moments that we can design something and make something unusual, and this is quite fun. So you could expect a mixture of these things.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So do you have any wishes for her thinking particles in a new version, or?
Oh, this is we can open up a big book there. But
Oh.
I guess generally, if you look at if you look at the big picture, besides uh, the things that are always nice to improve, performance and everything, it's really great that you're saying the export and so on is becoming better because this is quite important. Something that we would love to maybe see is maybe kind of a scary wish, but if there could be some good way to put in flip fluids in there, or to interact with the stuff that happens in Max with Max fluids, this would be quite interesting to kind of control this in a cool way, and generally to integrate a lot of different types of dynamics. It feels like the ropes could get some more love, and generally to be able to do more of a generative geometry, kind of control geometry more to build meshes in TP. This will be quite great, and to have more control on over meshes like the channels, to be able to write and to read UV channels from meshes, we feel is quite important.
Well, let me ask you one thing. What do you think the future of visual effects will look like? How do you think this industry will look like in maybe 5 years or 10 years?
I feel like there's going to be very important things which are coming, and I think mostly on the side of VFX becoming a closer part of some of things which are bigger. The experience that we are building, and I think VFX has been building it kind of the stage of the of what is doable, and kind of state the art, the best possible the most creative, the heaviest lifting, has done great service to just being able to expand the horizon of what visual imagination can do. And we are now in a very visual culture, so I think this is something which is becoming even more important. This kind of growth of imagination, leaps of imagination. And I think over time, it feels like over time this would spill over into other areas. You know, when we start having devices which we can interact with this kind of content and experience this kind of content much more around us, we will need to do the same things in much more areas than just a movie screen or a TV screen or a phone screen.
So you think VR is the future, virtual reality?
I think some kind of augmented reality
Oh, okay.
looks like the future. Not the heavy headset, not the like the Vive is quite great, but I think the future obviously goes to some kind of augmentation of reality that you could have and have VFX not only as a storytelling instrument, but also as expressive instrument. That's something that actually I'm quite interested in and have some side projects which might come out later this year. But I think these the biggest impact of what we do, I think, is gonna be in the expertise that the instruments that we are growing, how the way that they would expand and influence all these other new fields. But on what I really hope is going to happen inside our industry is kind of a couple of things. First, that the instruments will need to get much better and to allow the machines to assist the artists much more because so much more content needs to get made and the talent pools and the budgets are not expanding as much as the demand's expanding. So I really hope that we get some kind of an assistance from smart machines, which will help us, build environments and do some kind of basic compositing work and basic lighting work. And I really hope that some smarter software would be designed that is going to be able to take care not just of single problem, but this whole field, like don't just render a shot, render a whole sequence. Not just simulating something, but creating something which then can be multiplied across many situations and things like that would enable the fixed kind of slowly growing talent pool to address a quickly growing demand for work. So, obviously with that, the stuff that we talked about, better transfer of data in between these different platforms, because, we all know that it's not going to happen like a unification of the tools is not going to happen, but definitely unification of the channels for data is moving on, definitely needs to happen. And this would enable us to create more content and across more platforms and apply these ideas and skills that we have built to create more things, which I think eventually is the brightest future.
Okay, so you think artificial intelligence will help our industry as well?
I could imagine that an AI thing could look at a picture and could look at a bunch of assets and could help us out in arranging these assets so they be in a similar, so they can have a similar feel that like the picture is having, just produce this. When you do photography and you go outside, nature has done all the work for you. It has spread out all the blades of grass and it has grown up all the trees. And when you do CG, you have to do everything from scratch. So I think something like what nature has done for photography, we need to do something like that for computer graphics, because otherwise it's too laborious. So if I throw a bunch of assets at an algorithm and it creates something or gives me options that meaningfully distributes these assets in a naturalistic way, this would help out a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. So have reached our end of the interview here. Any last comments you want to mention?
I want to thank everybody in the community for being so great over the years and for all the stuff that I have learned from people. Yeah, this is so precious and valuable, and just being a part of this
Mm.
community has been a really great experience. And I really hope that I can give as much as I have taken, or who knows, maybe a little bit more. And I really hope that I can convey my joy of making these kind of really cool things to all people so they can experience on its own. And I hope that I can meet all of you very cool people somewhere down the road.
Yeah, a good chance would be SIGGRAPH this year in Vancouver.
This is definitely a good idea.
Yeah, will you be around in Vancouver?
We are quite close with the planning because we have a couple of weeks until we deliver a project, so it's kind of tight, but it's possible.
If
It's
it's
definitely
possible,
possible.
then let me know. We should meet up for sure in Vancouver. I will be
Definitely
there.
will do that.
Okay, good. So, thank you very much, Hristo, for this interview. It was very interesting. It was great to hear from you, and I wish you all the best. Thanks. Goodbye.
Thank you, Edwin. See you around.